Good morning, everybody. Happy Tuesday, Monday/Tuesday. We are going to talk about, I'm not sure how much of a budget recap we'll do, Doug. But it's really more of maybe a little bit of that, but it's more of planning for 2023, or at least starting that discussion. And then anticipated needs for current project teams like conservation easement team or the gateway signage team, and then maybe any new project teams that we see starting for 2023. That is our subject today. Oksana, as we just said, won't be joining us, and Karen is stuck in Alaska, which is probably not a bad place to be. Do you want
Sure. So
to start?
yeah, so it's that time of the year when we really start the budget process, and it's really my focus for the next 60 days in terms of the budget. As we kind of start off, first thing we do is look at the 22 budget and look at whatever requests there were and where those requests are currently. So I kind of started going through and made a list. And I just want to touch on some of those with you guys because some of it pertains to the project teams that report to the CIC. And then some of it we need to be thinking about for 23, as Sean was saying. So start with the CIC has a budget itself. It's got a budget line. This year, the total was about $1,500 in money that was available to the CIC. That included money for things like a strategic plan update, which we'll more than likely do in the fall. Comp plan, any updates or printing that need to be done, coffee, donuts, that sort of stuff. So the budget was about $1,500, not a huge amount, but so far this year, we've only spent $60.
Okay.
So that tells me you don't need that much money.
So you're right.
You're right.
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 So those are the types of things I want you to be aware of,
Okay.
because at budget time, I'm gonna be like, I can get by for $500 for this. So instead of 1,500,
Mhm.
Every little bit counts.
it adds up.
Sure you
It
do. I don't
adds
have
up.
to tell you that.
It adds up. It really adds up. Okay. So there's another budget team or budget line relating to the CIC. It's the budget line is 80-24-24. That's for uptown planning purposes. So for this year, and that essentially would be a project team for this year, we had $11,250 in the budget, and year to date, $5,000 has been spent, and that $5,000 all went to Bergman. So there is money available if we need to put on a training session relative to uptown in the form-based code. There's money if we need to make some additional changes. We had anticipated some improvements that need to be made to uptown, which I think all know that there's some things that we've learned this year, right? So it'd be good to try to get those done before the end of the year. And then there's money in there for essentially the final phase and wrapping up the final phase of uptown, which I think we've generally said, essentially, we're not going to change the industrial, but I think that needs to go back and be revisited. Our economic development team was really spearheading that effort that was led by Oksana, and we probably just need to have a final meeting just to make sure that that's done, because that team has not met in quite some time.
What do you envision a training session?
Well, for training in terms of how to use form-based code and how to review projects relative to form-based code, because it is so different
For potential developers or for staff?
for staff more, or for planning board members, zoning board members, that sort of thing, anybody involved.
How have you, Shauna, educated the potential developer?
We sit with them. We usually, Lance and I, actually 4 or 5 times have
So
sat.
that works.
I think so.
Okay.
We've had sketch plan submissions. We're gearing up for an actual site plan submission. And I think we're gonna see what needs they're gonna be.
Tweaking.
Yeah, absolutely, yeah. And some things we already know need to be tweaked. Absolutely, we both have a running list. But it's really it's a hand holding and walking them through every part of the code.
But like, I'll give you an example, and we've talked a lot about this at our LDC meetings, not so much, I don't think here. As the new technology comes on, the price of gas, everything else, there's going to be more and more demand for electric vehicle charging stations, right? And so one of the things we've talked about always with Uptown is a section of EV chargers going into that and actually requiring that. And we kind of, what I would say, push pause on that because it was during COVID as we were trying to wrap that up. And so we didn't do that. But Bergman actually has the draft language. So we could be going back and doing that. And as long as we enter into that agreement before the end of the year, we can encumber that money and roll it into next year's budget, even if
Okay,
it carries over.
right.
So we'll have a standard for a parking lot as well as the parking spaces.
Right.
Every 10 spaces, you've got to have
Whatever
a
it
charging
is.
station, and also you're gonna have to contemplate room for expansion because 10 years from now, there'll be more of them.
Right. Exactly. But that's where they have all of that and they've experienced working with municipalities with that. Another thing that I know Sean and I had a very brief conversation, I've kind of been looking at some other form-based codes in terms of green roof requirements, you know, and requiring some of that. So I think we should be having some of those conversations, especially since we do have some money to make some of these tweaks and updates as we move forward. So
What's a green roof?
things like either
Plantings,
it's got to have something.
How about solar panels?
That could be
That
included.
could be. Absolutely.
So a lot of that in the Southwest, like Arizona, Mexico.
Yes.
Put
Arid.
them on parking garages.
Right.
Just, of course, they get sun all the time.
Yeah.
They do. A lot of more modern buildings in some of the areas that have really developed over even the last 5 years also have solar panel glass on the sides of the buildings that are absorbing that blend in and really are aesthetically pleasing and still also providing the energy without losing the rooftop.
Am I correct that the new technology does not require direct sunlight?
That is correct. A lot of it's indirect.
Yeah.
Another project team of the CIC is the history team. And we had some money in this year's budget for like the phase 2 small amount and some work to be completed.
Yeah,
And there's been nothing spent.
yep, it's not done until the end of August, I think. So I mean, it will be spent.
Okay.
It's just, it's spent when it's billed.
Is that the grant? That's
That's
not
the
the grant.
grant.
It is the grant.
It's the reconnaissance survey
Yeah.
grant, the second half.
Second
of it.
part.
We did the first one a few years ago,
Mhm.
yeah. So it will be spent, it just hasn't yet. They also had some money, I don't remember what the line is called, it might be like, I don't know, signs or something, but they I think almost $300 is gonna go to the kiosk sign at Ononda Park, the history team, the ECB and the parks. I don't know which parks budget it's coming from Lindsay's side, but they all split that in thirds. That hasn't been billed yet, but it will be shortly. So yeah, they haven't spent much of theirs, but they have plans to. They haven't had a conversation on budget yet, their group, but I will remind them that they need to.
Affordable housing team is another project team that's a subsidiary essentially of the CIC. You know, obviously Karen's not here. They've actually spent more than their budget. But they're also in flux because of the situation where the county is really kicking off the affordable housing project component now. And so I'm not sure exactly what that looks like for the town of Canandaigua for 2023, but that's ongoing conversation.
How we spent money?
The agreement with MRV.
Oh, okay, for Matt.
Was that 5? How much was that?
11,000.
11.
And that's gonna become an increasingly critical issue.
How much momentum is the county
Good,
taking?
good. It's because what they're getting ready to do is the county is going to be leasing an RFP to hire a consultant to help lead that whole charge. The thing that I love about what the county is doing is they're including the infrastructure analysis as part of that, so that they see countywide where the needs are and what. It's just so big,
I
right?
mean, it's a nightmare,
Yeah.
that you've discovered in Uptown.
Yeah.
What,
It's gotta be universal, in fact, worse, more worse.
Right.
In other areas.
Right, correct.
well, much of the land use and housing and so on and so forth is up to town municipalities.
Yes.
So the county's initiative is what?
The county's initiative is, so the county still has all of the social service agencies, right, that are
Right.
interacting. So they understand that side of the need. The county also runs basically the county sewer for the most part. There's some exceptions to that. And so they understand all of the interconnections with that. But your water is primarily controlled by the local municipality. And then
Right.
you've got, electric, gas, broadband, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. You've got public transit that all factors into that, which is predominantly more county. And that's where it's actually been a problem. You have this pieces here and there and everywhere without anybody really communicating with each other. And it becomes difficult. Shauna and I were talking with a developer about affordable housing project in Uptown 2 weeks ago. And one of the problems that I know that exist is the sewer line and on the road that they're trying to put it on. And of course, the county's response is, well, they'll have to fix it. Well, it's hard to build affordable housing when you're telling them they have to put a new $1 million force main in the ground.
The
So
developer.
right. So it's the combination of all of those things and bringing all of the partners to the table that the county does have that ability to kind of bring everybody to the table and say, where are the opportunities? Where are the pinch points? What are the things that we could be doing? So.
Well, it is a countywide issue.
Yeah,
It's just that
absolutely.
the regs and the
Yes.
so on and so forth
Right.
are.
The land use issues, right, are relative to the local municipality, right? Yeah.
Hey Doug,
Yes, sir.
I was in attending at that meeting. And I have to say something that kudos to Karen Parkhurst. She had a lot of information that it seemed this people from the other groups didn't. I would have to say if there were a way to measure the metric as to where our committee is compared to things like, FLACRA, the different groups that they have there, that I'm going to toot our horn, that we're head and shoulders above that. There are so many different organizations involved, through FLACRA, because they want to be a one-stop center. And you're right. I definitely had the sense that, they just weren't communicating each other with the most current information. I'll give an example. Was really looking forward to attending this meeting, but it ended up, I hope I'm not stepping on anyone's feet here, but it ended up being a presentation that you're sitting there for an hour of a lot of information that I think the people should have had on it. And I'm saying this in all honesty, I certainly, I'm looking forward to this moving ahead. I was just kind of surprised, but I wanted to mention Karen because I know she's trying to get back from Alaska, rubbing noses with Eskimos.
Sal, I think you're spot on. First of all, I have no problem in saying the county initiative would not exist had it not been for the town of Canandaigua and the town's project team. And it's really going to be up to, I think, the town of Canandaigua to continue to keep pushing the county initiative forward. We're going to be leading, but through the county. And I know that Krista Bolt was supposed to come to he's the county administrator, was supposed to come this past Friday, but we canceled with Karen and Matt, neither one being able to be here. I think he said he confirmed he can come to the
To the
July
one in
meeting, right?
July, yeah, I think it's the 15th.
So we asked him to come and do a presentation, an update on where it is. But I think it's going to be important for us to continue to have that communication with him to keep pushing and to keep driving that. Now, he is very, to his credit, he's very excited about it and
Yes.
he's very supportive of it. He's also a town of Canandaigua resident. But he's also had his plate full for quite a while. And so now that the county has a brand new economic development director in Ryan Davis and a new deputy county administrator, I'm hopeful that it'll allow that initiative to start to pick up some speed. So,
Great.
but you're absolutely right, Sal. You are 100% correct. It's
But I just wanted to pass that on to everyone.
Well, last night at the Community Services Board, we had a lengthy discussion from all the social agencies relative to affordable housing, especially DSS. But it is a boondoggle. It's an incredible boondoggle. The agencies are talking to each other. But I don't know how much they're talking to the municipalities.
And that's where, you know, in my conversations, I can tell you with the county administrator, he said to me that some municipalities don't feel like they have an affordable housing issue, right? And so
Yes.
there's a variety of different opinions when you're dealing with 16 towns and 2 cities throughout Ontario County. We're just talking about Ontario County. So it's, you know, I think part of this is going to be to gauge the interest of the municipalities in working on this initiative. And then we'll kind of go from there. Right?
Do you think that the economic development issue is gonna be another impetus for this issue? Because people working in those places of business have to have a place to live.
No, you're absolutely right. We met with Pactiv just within the last 3 months, and one of their priority issues right now is housing for workers.
Yeah,
Absolutely. There's 3 more quasi-project teams. There's a conservation project team and also a, well, no, I'm sorry, it's a conservation project team, but we had identified a possible grant in terms of revenue with an expense, but there is money in the budget. So far, we haven't spent too much of that. I think we budgeted 17,000, but I think, no, I take that back. I'm talking about the wrong one. I'm talking about the forest. I'm sorry. Let me correct myself. Conservation contract, contractual line, 8710-400. There's $17,250 in it. Year to date, we've spent $525, but that includes the ag committee's money in terms of like doing signs. We had talked about doing signs
Yeah.
for the PDRs, which we haven't done. That also includes the conservation easement team has some money in there.
Which they're so early in their conversations, they're not ready to spend anything yet.
Right.
They have a line under,
Yes,
Okay,
under that.
under
sum.
that, okay.
But there is money that is currently there. So again, as that team is getting up and going, if there's something that you need, if you can enter into a contract, we can encumber that money even if it carries over into 23. The forestry advisory group, which is project team also under the CIC, right? So that one was the one that had a $17,000 budget. 15,000 of that was a grant. And so far to date, they've only spent $300.
On
So
the Arbor Day tree.
What
Yeah,
was the grant for?
So that's the Urban and Community Forest Grant, which they
Okay.
haven't released in 2 years. It's the one where they'll pay for you to do a municipal tree inventory
Mhm.
and then develop a management plan after you do the inventory. We had applied for it a few years ago. We didn't get it, but I had an exit interview with the granting agency. And I said, you know, I mean, as a rural community, do we even need to apply for a grant like this? She said, I absolutely think you should. Here's where your application could use some work. So we were ready to do it again, but they haven't opened it again. So I don't know what the future of that program is, but that's why we didn't spend any of that.
and then the final one is cemeteries, which now has actually become its own separate committee, but it wasn't at the time. It was project team. They had 21,000 budgeted for this year, and to date have only spent 5,000. So there is money in the 22 budget, I guess is my point here, that has not been spent. And it's hard for me to budget at those same levels if the money's not getting spent.
I'm guessing, well, Leaf just came on board. I'm guessing he'll have no trouble spending it.
Leaf's been here over a year.
He's really,
Mhm.
he seems very charged up and enthusiastic.
But there is a new cemetery committee that Leaf actually is a little bit involved with, but not a lot involved with. Karen DeMay is the chair of that. But they are excited. They're getting up and going and everything. I'm confident that they'll be spending some money and everything, but yeah. So as we think about 23 project teams and kind of just thinking about the things that we just talked about, I don't know how much of that carries over and then what new project teams and then what budget requests might exist for 23. So kind of why I wanted to chat with you guys a little bit.
Right.
know-
Doug, did the Gateway Sign Committee finish its effort? What's the status on that?
The Gateway Signs group finished part of their work, so 6 signs were ordered and completed and paid for. As far as the manufacture, there's still money to pay for the installation of those signs. But that hasn't been completed yet, but the board just approved a project with MRB to work on getting actual locations mapped out for the installation of those signs, so that hopefully will start moving forward a little quicker now, but there's still the issue of, you know, if it looks like it's gonna need to go on private property, then we need to ask permission with the landowner and work on easements and things like that, and you know how quickly that goes. So I'd say they completed the initial part, but there's still more to do, and then in their original plan, there were more signs. So in the future, I don't know if it would be next year or the year after, but they would probably request more money in their budget to have more signs made and installed once these are done.
They've way overspent their budget. We actually, to the point where we had to create a capital project
Yes.
budget separate. So that doesn't actually go through the town budget anymore. Money comes out of the town budget and helps fund it, but I think where originally it was like $5,000 or $8,000, I think it's 35,000
No,
now.
it was originally
Oh, back
whatever
way
the
back
price
in
of the
day.
sign, oh,
Before.
originally it was like $15,000. And then it turned into like a $30,000 project with the 6 signs.
Yeah, but now it's like 37, I think.
No, it's more.
Is
especially
that-
with that MRB?
Is it more than 37 with the installation, or does the 37?
The
include-
installation was budgeted last year when we approved the project with sign language, but we didn't spend it yet because they didn't install them yet.
I see.
So that money's held back, and they created a project account, which will roll over from year to year because we realized this was a multi-year project and they just can't get it done.
When does
On
it
time.
switch to a capital project? Is there a threshold?
Yeah,
does that
so
work?
most of your planning will never ever switch to a capital project. Capital project is for a actual piece of something that you can touch, feel, see.
Yep.
It's an asset. It's something that actually goes onto our asset management reports. It's a structure. It's
Okay.
something that is going to expend multiple years, and then we kick it over to a capital project and out of the budget process. But we still have to pull money out of the budget to fund it,
Yep.
or from one of the sources to fund it.
It also makes it easier to track from year to year because it
Sure.
lives in its own little
It has
place.
its own little world.
Going back to signs and PDRs. We should be flying our flag as far as preservation of these farms, and you have some like this, you know. This is a farm that's been
Mhm.
preserved through whatever.
We had, was it the Genesee Land Trust that did it? They had made some signs, big bronze, expensive signs that are installed at some of their farms that were preserved with the same program, the PDR program. And we had shown the Ag Committee some of those, and at the time, I think it just kind of got pushed on the back burner. It might be time to reintroduce it. I can't remember, they were kind of expensive. I think they were like, were they over $1,000?
Oh,
Yeah, per sign.
That's too bad.
And it would be installed in front of the property
It
that was
almost think the
preserved. And I-
state, because the state would like to brag about it too.
I think that was kind of the reason why it got pushed to the back burners. The committee thought it was pretty expensive for a sign, and could we do something on our own that was cheaper? And I don't know. Anyway, they didn't do anything with it.
The land, the stuff up on Barnum's, do they have at least the land trust plaques, which are teeny?
That has,
The
The Vista?
it's
the
got a
Albright
big
property,
sign.
or which
but-
one are you talking about? Middle Cheshire Road or the Vista? The-
Vista,
Oh, yeah, that's got the finger.
That's got the
They've got a big
smaller
sign
one.
out front.
They have
Well,
a
it's got
small, they
yeah,
have a
they're
few.
about this big.
Yeah.
Nobody's gonna notice them driving by.
It's
Of
okay.
course, nobody drives by up
Yeah.
there, but the farms, we ought to.
Those are
Be
not
proud
huge
of it.
signs either, though. Those
What?
bronze ones, I want to say they're.
They're like
this.
the
You probably
historical
kind of have to
marker
pull
ones.
over to read
Yeah.
it.
They're like the ones at Wolverton Cemetery, or
Okay.
not Wolverton, at Hunt Cemetery. It's
The
like
his
the
little
dog-
historical plaques.
Yeah,
Okay,
The-
yeah,
so you gotta pull over,
but
okay.
it gets your attention. but
it
you gotta
does,
pull
yeah.
over. So there's still work to do this year, but then thinking ahead to next year, I know you haven't done your strategic planning yet, but
Right there.
what needs exist in terms of looking ahead for the project teams, and the things that you might want to focus on?
Yeah, that's hard,
And
right?
that could be determined from, Shauna, what's the report card that came out of the joint meeting with the planning board, zoning board? How did those initiatives score?
The first, I sent that to Doug. Doug, we haven't really, yet. I wanted Doug to
Oh.
take a look at it.
Okay.
The initiatives, the last two were fairly low. I would say that I think the last two got Cs and Ds, but the first, we have pretty much Ds for the first three. I believe. I'm coming from memory here. Which were, farmland protection, natural resource protection, permanent protection of lands. The affordable housing, I think the consensus was, yes, we've acknowledged it, that's great, but we're really in the infancy of doing anything with it, with affordable housing. And then construction investment of roads and sidewalks, et cetera, scored pretty low. I think it was D, C or C/D.
Yeah. got it.
Yeah, do you have it?
Yeah,
Get
so
that
goal
right.
5, invest in construction of road sidewalks and bike lanes. There were 4 Bs, 6 Cs, 3 Ds. Grade based, so what the average is the highlighted, is that what it
Yeah,
is? So the
yeah.
average is a C.
Yeah.
The comments, create a sidewalk easement map for the town. I'm interested in sidewalk overlay mapping. In general, the broad spectrum of attention by staff and boards is excellent. Other municipalities are dull compared to the town of Canandaigua. Makes great sense. Doug's example with the not only citizen made an impression, shelters make sense, again, working on it, but visible, not visible quite yet. Middle Cheshire Road plan needs to be built. Connections expanded, more sidewalks connecting areas would be great. Having developers help support the cost. Many of our homes are selling are far from affordable, so there should be latitude for them to put them in.
Yeah.
Goal number 4, support the development of affordable housing options and affordable transportation options for local workforce. The average there was C. 1 D, 8 Cs, 3 Ds. The comments, we're on track, lots of work to do. Good luck in this endeavor. Sounds like we're working towards this. Hard to do this. Transportation is an issue. Goal 3, promote housing development growth within identified growth nodes. The average here is a B, so that's not bad.
No, not bad.
That's bad. Housing development with more focus on affordable housing. Goal number 2, permanently protect lands with natural resource significance. So that's the average was an A.
That's
6 A's.
6, 8. Was there a
5.
couple Bs?
Yeah,
Oh,
5
it was
B's,
like
1
A's,
C,
B's.
1 D with 6 A's.
Yeah. the new purpose.
The reason I asked it just might help us determine where we want to spend our time and our money.
Yeah.
In 23.
Check, right, but on that note, I mean, like, so clearly the lowest, well, I shouldn't say that, the lowest, I think it's fair to say, the lowest of the gradings was invest in construction of roads, sidewalks, and bike lanes. And I know you're with us on the Planning Public Works Committee. Any thoughts on how we could do a better job even with Planning Public Works on that?
Well, I certainly think Jim does a good job in terms of tracking and the condition of roads and all that, all the maintenance, nuts and bolts part of things. But I think also, in terms of looking at a plan moving forward to consider more the complete streets and improving our bikeways and pedestrian ways and roadways. I had mentioned something about the possibility of a highway management plan. And that would be more of a planning tool than a maintenance tool. And that's something I talked to Terry about, and maybe we could get going. I don't think it would take that much effort and money to set it off, because I think a lot of the information we need in terms of the street hierarchy and how we organize our streets is already in-house, and it's just a matter of deciding which streets we want to see, what improvements to improve and meet the conditions of that initiative. So that's sort of the way I was thinking. I don't know how the rest of the committee feels.
It sounds like, so you're saying a separate team to focus on complete streets and an assessment of our current, where we're at. And maybe this is the team that also comes up with the sidewalk map, the sidewalk easement map.
Yeah, it would sort of be a follow-up to the original Complete Streets team, which sort of left it with guidelines, but it didn't give us a lot of meat and potatoes to work with in terms of where we want to apply the standards around the town. So yeah, maybe a team to focus on that work would be appropriate.
I wonder if we could keep it simple, though, to be honest. I was even thinking about just taking a map and highlighting the roads where we're anticipating the greatest density and kick it back to Planning Public Works.
Yeah, I think, I hate to give you more work, Chuck, but I think that is made to order for the Public Works Committee. You see where the growth is and see where the needs are, and where the residential growth is, where there aren't sidewalks or there aren't adequate sidewalks and easements and rights of way and so on. So ultimately, it's going to be Jim's problem.
Yeah, I would think the majority of it would be uptown. I mean, at some point in time, there does need to be a conversation about Middle Cheshire Road, that pathway and that. But other than that,
We don't have any control over.
It's pretty much
over
uptown.
Westlake Road, right?
No way.
I mean, I don't know what the hell they're doing there, but they've done 2 laps of micro paving.
mhm,
And they haven't striped it, so I don't know whether that's going to be better for pedestrians or bikes. But it's only just south of Weifels.
well, the county did a whole
Right.
feasibility analysis of County Road 16. And there were
Can't do
specific
anything because
actions.
of the-
No, but there were some
Blacks.
action items. You're right. There's
Some.
restraints,
There's a
but there's
few.
some action items that they could do that they've just ignored. That's the county.
Well, except it's also the town of Canandaigua, and they all bitch to you.
Yeah, absolutely.
Uh,
And I give them Krista Bolt's number.
I don't know how we approach that.
Not just uptown too, though, but any town roads that are near the busy parts of the city too, where we could make improvements.
But that whole issue. And even as you talk about affordable housing, right, or workforce housing, I mean, that's something that factors into that also.
Mhm.
Multimodal transportation is absolutely part of the workforce housing initiatives.
Right. back to affordable housing, and they need money. I mean, this is my personal opinion. I'm not confident that. Feel like we are leading the charge and we need to stay ahead of that. Is my opinion. Doesn't mean we can't obviously be part of the county team, but. You know, it's pretty important.
So now that, but going back to Chuck's point, now that, so we have the 5 goals that everybody kind of prioritized for this year. You've got kind of the grades here to share with everybody. Is one of the CIC meetings coming up going to be to dig a little deeper into that and also to start to think about some initiatives for next year? Or you're just going to do that as part of the larger strategic planning session?
Well, looking ahead, September 6th is our priorities goal status for 2022. But maybe we push that, maybe we move that back earlier to earlier in the summer. Conservation
Have
easement.
Like a
well,
mini workshop. or
Yeah, I'm
something.
thinking, I'm just looking at, because the affordable housing team is August 2nd for an update.
Yeah, the sooner the better you do that, Shauna. It might have some influence on the budget moving forward. So if you want to have any budget allocation related to any of those points, the sooner the better.
Maybe move. Getting like water quality and, yeah, we could rework this timeline.
Yeah, but August 12th is final budget request for the budget calendar.
Honestly, maybe
Do in July.
July, right. 6th, 19th. Maybe the 19th.
We have to the 19th currently.
We have candidate with like water quality protection. That would, we could move that.
Mhm.
Yep.
'Cause
Absolutely.
that would be an update from Kevin.
Yeah, that's a Kevin O update. We can move that to September.
So it would be kind of like a mini precursor to the strategic planning session in September.
So 6.
And we would do that in July to kind of help predict what kind of budget needs we might have. for
Right,
any
because that would
teams.
give us, because if we needed to talk about it additionally, we could do it on August 2nd too, as well. We could have 2 dates if we wanted that. So we could move. Okay, so let's talk about, let's change the July 19th to basically the same topic, 2023 budget request. And then we'll just move water quality to September. To, let's see, where do we want to move that?
And I think prior to that meeting, you would circulate the report card as to, you know,
Yeah, that
where
will,
we're doing well, and then that would be the lead into where our focus should be at that meeting in terms of where we need improvement.
right. Okay, that's what we'll do then. The candidate was, well,
Or are you thinking about that stuff?
yeah, I
Okay.
want to talk, I don't want to commit to anything until I talk to Kevin.
Okay.
Yeah, once Doug and I talk about format for the report card, I'll get that out to everybody. All right. Is there anything else we want to discuss today?
I was just curious as to how the town's been using or thinking about using the windfall that we got from the COVID money. Is it a lot of money, or I know in planning public works, we were talking about some infrastructure projects, but have you seen money, and has it been of any value to the town?
Yeah, so the ARPA money is what we call it, the American Rescue Plan Act, something or other, I don't know, something like that. It is hard to keep track of them all. So the town got $1.1 million. It was split between the summer of over 2 years, and yes, we've received the money. So we do have the money. The town board passed a resolution, I want to say it was in March, because by the end of April, I had to certify what we were using the money for. And so the town board's resolution said that we were using it for infrastructure improvements. There are limited things that qualify for infrastructure improvements. It's not a broad category when you look at the definition of infrastructure per the federal government. But one of the things that would qualify is the County Road 28 sewer project, if we move forward with that. I don't think that, I keep hearing some board members that are in favor of that and some that aren't. So I'm still not sure there's full alignment on moving forward with that. I think one of the big things, Chuck, as you know, is planning public works meeting. We need to meet with the residents and explain to them what their share of the cost of that is going to be for the County Road 28 project. Outside of that, it can be used for water quality improvement. It can also be used for outdoor recreation. But at this point, the town board's resolution stands until it's superseded that says it's to be used for infrastructure and specifically sewer.
What's the issue with County 28?
There's some older sanitary septic systems that have been failing or close to failing.
What's the issue to be in opposition?
Well, one of the questions is, here you have money, the federal money that was given to the town on behalf of all the taxpayers, and the installation of a sewer along County Road 28 doesn't necessarily benefit all the taxpayers of the town of Canandaigua.
Perpetual problem.
It is a perpetual problem.
Except that failing systems is bad ecologically and environmentally and for so many other reasons. So, I mean, it could be a benefit no matter who gets the sewer systems.
Right.
And they had previously looked at Cheshire, and that just did not work out. The residents of Cheshire said no. And they looked at Grandview Park, and the cost was just astronomical, and it was a no. So this is the third identified priority area from the sewer master plan update that we did. So Chuck, does that answer your question?
Yeah. I certainly was aware of the County Road 28. I just thought there was other money that possibly could be used in administration or something, but apparently there's not. And that's the 1.2 million is what we got. And hopefully we use it.
Yeah, there's we're trying to get some reimbursement for some expenses that we had during COVID through a FEMA grant, but those are that's smaller, relatively speaking, smaller. That's less than $50,000, but yeah.
Okay, thank you.
All right, thank you, Chuck. Thank you all. Our next meeting is July 6th, which is a Wednesday due to the holiday. Yep, due to the 4th of July.
And the topic being?
The topic is Finance Committee / Ordinance Committee update.
All right.
All right. And we'll get the report card out to you. We can do that this week. All right. Thank you.
Very good.
Everybody. Have a great day.
Thanks.
Thanks,
Have a great
everyone.
week.